Today I'm sitting down with Alexandre Verrien. He used to be the legal director of France for Dell Technologies, and now he works for himself as a legal executive. Today he's sharing his unique experiences working in-house and his perspective on how AI should be adopted within organizations. He talks about what the legal organization of the future in, say, 2030 would look like and how teams can prepare now. So, Alex, I don't normally start by asking kind of open questions. I normally ask very kind of specific, direct questions. But with the amount of knowledge and background and experience that you have, you're in a very unique position in terms of you've worked with tech giants, you have this legal background, so you have a very good position in the market to see what is the future looking like. What do you see from where you sit? Is the impact, the real impact of AI on the legal industry?
I would say that, the future is first bright for sure. And second, I would say that the future will be probably technological at some point because, as you said, AI is almost everywhere. We are pushed by AI also to transform the way we work internally, but also for external counsels, law firms. They have to change a bit the way they provide some services. So for sure, it will be technological and it will be AI first. Some teams are still not equipped, with, I would say, probably the basic CLM. So they are already thinking to just go to the next step with AI, powered by AI, something like that. So yeah, technological and AI for sure, transformative, because we see some in-house departments being, I would say, in a quite polite way, a bit too old-fashioned. So they have to transform the way they work, and they are, pushed by the technology, and they are pushed also by the boards and the exco to change some stuff around. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree in terms of it's definitely without a doubt going to be a transformative future, and there's going to be a huge impact. Why do you think legal teams, from what you see, are not ready for the impact?
They are not necessarily ready right now because it's a question of mindset. Lawyers, you have been a lawyer. I'm still a lawyer. We are very conservative. We don't necessarily want to take risk too much. We don't necessarily want to change something which is working or we think is working. So adopting a new technology, especially AI, beside any kind of data protection, security, sovereignty issues, just changing the way they work is a question of mindset. So in the discussions I have, especially in France, in my country for the moment, I see people being very interested in AI, in technology, but just thinking for the moment, not necessarily, okay, we need to adopt. They are thinking about, okay, we have maybe to change something, but that's already, I would say, the pioneers thinking about, okay, we have to transform. And you have a massive amount of in-house departments being, okay, why do we change? Why should I change the way I work? It's working since 10 years or 15 years. So they are not yet there in terms of mindset, if that makes sense for you. I think so.
Mhm.
I've been discussing also with few people outside of France. I think they are a bit more in advance versus our continental Europe way of doing things.
It's definitely mindset. I think a lot of people are also kind of in denial as well because it's a massive shift, and they're like, people are comparing it to when emails came about, and it's like, this is so much different. This is very, very different. I've seen teams being cut as a result of AI, literally replacing them, not only legal teams but other types of teams as well. And I think we can't deny that.
I think that there's some kind of risk, but my view is that you cannot really replace all the lawyers or in-house consultants just by a tech tool. Uh, AI, CLM, and so on, because it's just a tool. Just being honest and frank and very straight to the point. It's a tool. That's it. It's not a human that has some kind of thinking abilities at some point, but that's just a binary suite. That's nothing more, That's a tool, full stop. When you are thinking about legal stuff, if I'm taking an example, a very basic one, when you are doing a negotiation for a contract, whatsoever the kind of contract, buying or selling real estate and so on, you can get it through the tool for sure. You can have the first draft, you can have the first review, you can have also the second level review, just because you are using playbooks and so on. So, yeah, you can have this. But in the case of a strong negotiation with a very difficult customer, and we all had difficult customers in our lives, you cannot really replace human judgment. You cannot really replace the experience of a lawyer who has been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years. The tool is here and will be there just to help you and making things faster at some point for sure, but it won't be a replacing, lawyers.
Each week, I take what I'm hearing in conversations with legal leaders. I analyse the market and track emerging trends in this AI era. In my newsletter called The Future Lawyer Market Intel for the AI Era, I'm focused on what AI is exposing, the opportunities, the blind spots, and the shifts shaping the next 5 years. This is how you see the chessboard before everyone else does.
I'm always saying that kind of stuff, like you are in a room, you are meeting someone, you are discussing terms, liability, financial terms, any kind of complex terms. AI is not sitting close to you, next to you. AI is worst case scenario on your computer, but you are facing someone and you are sharing points, sometimes red lines, sometimes points which you don't agree with the counterpart. That's just a human being. That's just two persons around the table. And AI is not part of that discussion. AI is a tool. So, yeah, there will be probably cuts in terms of headcounts for sure. There will be probably transformation in the kind of role we are doing, and especially maybe juniors in the next years. And we have seen already some transformation around that. But thinking that there will be no more legal people within the companies, I'm not buying that.
I think there will be a lot less, but obviously they will still definitely be needed. I spoke last week with a guy who created a Claude native law firm. So there's just two people, him and somebody else within this law firm, and they have more than 200 clients. Now that usually that would take up a lot of lawyers. A small team of lawyers would have to handle that, but instead AI is handling the legal work, which for me is just, I just think it's absolutely crazy, and I cannot believe that we've gone from last year things were kind of normal within law firms to this year we have AI running legal work, and a two person law firm is handling 200 cases. Like it's changed so much. Has it surprised you?
Your example surprises me quite a lot. Absolutely. I don't know the kind of work they are doing, and if it's very light, very easy work, or is it heavy and complex stuff. So I can get that if you are just writing very, I would not say basic because that's not very nice, but if you are drafting complex agreements with two counterparts, if you are not necessarily discussing for hours a liability clause and so on, where I think that the human judgment is way more important, because you understand the rationale behind a pushback. You understand that. And I had the case, I do recall a very, very specific case where I had someone in front of me being very hard with me, very tough and just pushing back on everything. And I discovered that he had a situation with our competitor at that point of time when it was stuck into the contract. There were no way, to just exit the contract, just get some kind of indemnification for some stuff. So I can understand for low value added tasks, maybe if I can call it that way, but for very high value tasks, for very complex stuff, I'm not really pretty sure that it's really scalable. My bottom, I'm trying to advocate for my profession. So yeah.
Of course. And to be honest, I do have kind of more questions in terms of if people are using AI for hundreds of clients, so the majority of the work, how do they check all of that? How do they make sure it's accurate? It's confusing to me, you know?
Yeah, especially because considering that when you are using I think that some teams and some people are missing one key principle, which is human in the loop. Um, you have to double check the results of your AI. Uh, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, or even though, legal specialized AI tools, you have to double check. So if you are running a law firm or if you are running a law department and you are, just working on 200 cases through an AI tool, you have to double check. So at least there are some human interaction. Is it really sustainable, scalable? Or I don't know.
We will see. We'll see.
Yeah. And if we consider also that I'm pretty sure that you are familiar with the GIGO concept, garbage in, garbage out. That means that also you need to have legally trained people, working because if you are prompting in a bad way, if you are not giving the exhaustive, information, you won't get the proper result you are trying to achieve. So you need to have human at some point for sure. Before, after, and sometimes in the middle, because you have to prompt again, you have to give additional information, you have to give additional context. So there will be human. The question is more about how many.
So let's just say we will need less human lawyers because AI can do the work much better, and it will be more down to those lawyers who have more experience, I guess, better judgment, more critical thinking through experience and learning and these things. What do you think about the rest of the lawyers? What are they going to do?
First, I think that we still need to have juniors. We cannot just have only experienced people having more than 10, 15, 20 years whatsoever. Because when people will be retiring, you won't be having back, some people working for you. So you will be in a situation where you will have only your AI tool. So we still need some juniors and we still need to train them on the case law, on the codes for my country, because we have codes. So you still need to train them and to teach them how to think as a lawyer and to work as a lawyer or to work as an in-house counsel. For the rest, I think that we will transform our legal departments. And funny enough, I wrote a post a few days ago about what would be the legal organization of the future within a company in 2030. I think, and I've been quite provocative on this, saying, okay, there will be only 50% of lawyers. Only 50. Very provocative. Um, Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm correct on the percentage. That's not really the point. The point is that we will have different roles, new roles, legal AI engineer, for sure, legal ops. I'm not necessarily speaking about legal ops because I think they are essential and they are the backbone of a legal organization. But we will have legal engineers, we will have legal data analysts, we will have legal HR ops, we will have legal biz ops, we will have plenty of new roles which are not necessarily there for the moment. And then we will transform the organization. We will transform the way we work through processes, through technology. So there will be still lawyers and there will be new roles, new skills. AI is for sure a skill, and everything around AI is kind of skills because, again, when you are using that kind of tool, you also need to have clean data. So you have to have someone working on the data because if you have a mess of data, terabytes of data which are not organized, which are not clean, when you have maybe three final version of a Word document and you have two PDF version, one is signed, the other one is initialized, and both are called final, you have to clean that first. So you will have someone just working on the data because it's one of the biggest thing within a company, and legal teams are the one having, I would say, the memory of the company most of the time. So yeah, you will have, from my point of view, something around 50% of lawyers and something around less than 50% being legal X role.
Interesting. I wish I'd seen that post. I'm gonna go and check it out afterwards because it sounds like a really interesting post and I like the idea of it. But
It's written in French, so you just need
oh,
to push the button, short translation. But that would be okay.
thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Or you work your French.
Yeah. I can practice my French, my non-existent French. Um, but that's probably why it didn't pop up in my feed potentially.
Maybe.
But I'll have a look. I'll have a look for sure. What do you think then in terms of like this is, very kind of futuristic, but do you think lawyers will need to kind of retrain, reskill based on what you've said? Let's say 50% stay as lawyers in their kind of roles that they're doing now. And then the other 50%, do you think they need to kind of change the way that they're working or, as I say, upskill? How do you see that?
For the 50% remaining part of lawyers, for sure they will have to improve their skills. I'm not necessarily thinking in terms of retrain on everything because laws are changing and we have case law for sure. So we are used to train ourselves. And sometimes when you are registered to the bar, you have an obligation to continue your training on certain amount of hours per year whatsoever. So we are used to upskill ourselves on some topics. Let's say, for example, EU Data Act, DORA, NIS 2. We are very used to. That will be more improving technological skills, working with a tool. We are used to use Outlook, Word. We are not very good at Excel. Sometimes we are not too bad at PowerPoint. We work with SharePoint. We work with Slack, Teams. But AI especially is a bit different because you can discuss with the tool. So, and discussing is prompting for sure if you are using the correct word. So that would be more an upskill in terms of being geeky at some point, and working with a tech, a specific tech, which is AI. But in terms of flow, we are doing so almost every day. Sometimes when you have a very specific training plan within the legal department, you can upskill on financial, you can upskill on security and so on. But for the very specific topic of technology, that would be a bit different. And that would not be a standard training schedule. That would be more how to use it, which kind of principle you need to be in mind when you're working with that kind of tool, how you can maybe doing things faster, what you have to review, what you have to be careful about, and so on. Yeah.
I totally agree with you, by the way, about the 50%, 50/50, even maybe potentially less than 50%. Just based on conversations I've had and what I've seen, I'm not trying to be negative.
So you ask your question, and I will try to be positive.
Yeah. That's it. I wanted to ask you because I know that you go to a lot of conferences, you have a lot of conversations with people, you're very in the industry, and I would say like at the center, you're connected with people. What are people saying about the future of law? What are the main concerns? What are the main kind of opportunities that you hear?
Pretty good question, I would say. People being, thank you for that one. People being, like you and some other people, and even though like me, attending conferences and speaking sometimes at conferences, I think we have a very specific view on the evolution of the legal department onto the um, AI tech era. People coming to conferences are very interested in knowing what is done by the others. They are more looking at some kind of benchmark, because what is my competitor doing? What kind of other companies similar in terms of revenue and setup is doing, in order to make sure that they are not necessarily, missing something. But I've been hearing also during one of the last conference in November 25 in France, like few people were already struggling with the fact that there's too much noise around tech and AI, because when you are attending a legal event, most of the time the sponsors are tech companies and AI power. You hear everything around, okay, you need to transform, you need to adopt AI and so on. And when people are hearing too much noise around this, they're just, okay, no, that's not for me, not yet. Maybe next year, maybe in 5 years, I don't know. And there's also some kind of fear around the fact that you have so many companies. You have very small ones. You have very big ones, and not speaking about the elephant in the room, but you have the Swedish one, you have the US one, like Aura, Alven, and others. And in my country, you have some other players. Few people I've been working and speaking with are telling me, okay, we need to be very careful, because if we are subscribing to a tool, is that company still existing in the next 2 or 3 or 5 years? Because we are making some kind of EV investment, and we all know that legal departments are not the one with the biggest budget into the company. So if we are spending between 50 and 100K every year on a legal tool, is it worth? Because the company is still existing in 2 years or 3 years. There's a massive question around this. And funny story. Last year, I was at the Legal Tech Talk event in June in London, and I got the same question again, quite provocative. I said to that person, I think that when you are looking at the landscape in the next 3 years, 50% of the companies will have disappeared. They will be dropping because no business, or they will be acquired and merged. So in the next 3 years, 50% of the landscape will change. So I do understand my peers also thinking, okay, we are pushed to move to AI, but in the meantime, the company, we are looking at buying a CLM powered by AI, but is the company still there in the next 2 years? I can get that question, fear, um, because we don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting point about the tech companies and like you say, it could be a little bit controversial, but I think a lot of people are also kind of saying it and thinking, what is the future going to look like for the actual legal tech companies themselves, and why should we be using, smaller brands, because they may not exist, whereas the larger ones, the US, Swedish, will they're probably more likely to be here because they're bigger, they're growing more, so people might feel like they should use those ones. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think those two companies are, are benefiting from the fact that they are, first, very well known in the world. Second, they have a very big valuation. They raised tons of money. So they are able to make investment in order to develop their own product. They are able to make investment in order to buy technological bricks, which they are not developing by themselves. They are able to make investments, buying smaller competitors, let's say for a French company or an American company buying a German one because they don't have the German capability and so on. They are very able to do so by themselves because they raise a lot of money. But in the meantime, and I had the discussion last week, I guess, on this, everyone is speaking about CLM, but we have also to think about additional legal stuff, litigation, um, chatbot or lowbot, which is the basic one, but very important. We have to think about the other legal fields, which are not necessarily very well addressed for the moment. We have tools. Some of them are very well known. Some of them are very confidential. Some of them are very small. So we don't really know how the market will evolve. We know that we will have big players. We already have some, but the market will also transform. So there's also some kind of, okay, let's wait and see what will be the future. From my point of view, I think that it's not necessarily the better position because when we are waiting for, we are already losing the momentum. And then we are not necessarily, innovating. We will be under more pressure to adopt AI. We will be under more pressure to transform. You are no more in an evolution of your role and your organization. You will be in a total disruption in the next 3 years if we are just waiting and seeing, okay, what will be the future? What will be the landscape? What will be the players onto the market? You will be in a situation where, okay, you just have to change. Where now, if you are doing things, if you are launching an RFP, you are meeting with different companies, you are doing a test, POCs, proof of concepts, and so on, you are in a position where you already take ownership of your evolution and transformation. In the next 3 years, if you are just waiting and seeing what will be the future, you won't have, the ownership of your transformation. You will be just forced to, which is not necessarily the better thing for a legal department.
It's such an interesting time now. Like you say, it's a bit risky to wait, but then it's like there's a lot of overwhelm, like you mentioned, so many tools, people, like a lot of noise, like what you said. I think that the best thing that law firms or in-house legal teams can do is to make their team members feel like they can experiment and test with different tools and not rely on one specific tool, but also use tools that are not necessarily legal tech related, because honestly there's so many legal tech tools out there, as you know, and it's like, why are you bringing more tech tools? We don't really need more tools. We need the people to change their mindset and change the culture before we get the tools in.
It's really true and 100% aligned with your point. When I'm speaking with people, I'm always going back to the very famous acronym PPT, which stands for People, Process, and Technology. Again, I think that technology is good. And I've been in the IT world for many, many years. So I won't be, just saying, okay, tech is not good. I'm part of the legal tech and my world. I'm part of the tech world. So for sure, tech is good. But if you are adding a tool on something which is not working, you just create a chaos and that won't be working better. You need to first start with your people, your organization. Do you have the right people? Do you have the right skills? Is everyone is in the right place? Is your organization, addressing the business needs? Is your organization working well? No specific criteria of what is working well, but working well. If you are, supporting your business, you have your strategy, you know what you have to do in the next 6, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years. First, people and organization. Second, process. You have to rationalize the way you work. You have to improve your processes. You have to improve your templates and everything around the way you work. And then you can add a tool on this. But if you are just buying a tool and if you are just doing AI just to shine in dinners, no interest at all, because you are just putting something on something which is messy. So it won't be solving anything. It will be just adding mess on mess. And then mess on mess is just chaos. And it won't be working at all. Clearly. So first, people, second, process, and third, tools.
It makes perfect sense, though. How would you say companies can get the people in place to be able to be in a position to adopt that technology so you don't have this mess on mess situation?
It really depends on the company you're in which you are, because the business, the setup, the organization right now, and so on, and what is already in place. But from my point of view, I think, and I'm thinking also in terms of my potential next role, I will be doing some, audit to see what is good, what is working, if people are enough skilled on everything we need to for supporting the business in the right position. Let's say you have people, you are a very innovative company, but do you have someone or do you have few people being specialized in intellectual property and working in order to make, patents in Europe or in the US? Are you covering this? If not, you have to cover. So you have to find the right people, the right place. That needs to be done at some point by the GC and by the organization. And if you have lots of people in order to do so on your behalf, that's good. But most of the time, it's just the GC or the legal director or whatever the title. And then you adjust the skills, then you adjust the people, and then you adjust the layers of seniority. Do I need on this market to have 5 junior people, maybe two senior, one junior? You see, it really depends on the nature of the company, the business, and the current structure. Again, thinking in terms of potential next role, I'm thinking about the fact that when you join a company, you don't just start from scratch. You have something in place. So you have to make sure that what is in place is first working. And if it's not working well, you make some adjustments. I won't be, for example, if I'm taking my own example, I won't be just putting everything on the side, saying, okay, we will start from a white page and we will rebuild everything. No, that's not possible. So you have to make adjustments and you have to make an audit.
Yeah, audits. Yeah, very, very important. And I think it's a great idea, actually, because then you can actually see which parts of the business need more development. And yeah, it's a fantastic way to analyze everything for sure.
Yeah, and I think, also there's something very important, and I've been quite amazed to understand this through the different discussions I had over the last 18 months. You have to have a strategy for the legal department. Because when you have a corporate strategy, but the legal department doesn't have any kind of strategy, and if your strategy is just to support the business, I can think that your organization is not very well placed because you don't have a strategy. I've been working for tech giant. One is very well known in the US, doing computers, servers, and everything around. You had the corporate strategy. The GC was preparing its own strategy for the legal department. And each VP, SVP, and local GC were doing their strategies based on the corporate strategy and the GC strategy. So we had some kind of strategy cascade and we adapted on our own market or own region. What we have to do, if we have to focus, let's say, on OEM, original equipment manufacturer, if we have to focus on partnerships, if we have to focus on public sector, and then you adjust your organization, you adjust your skills, your people to the legal strategy. So that's very important.
It's interesting actually about strategy because I saw a statistic just a few months back saying that a really low number of law firms and legal teams had, and I know you're talking about different type of strategy, but an AI strategy, but they were adopting the AI And it's like, how can you be adopting it when you don't have any strategy in place? It doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. I think that if you do any kind of legal work without a strategy, I don't think it's very efficient. If you want to transform your organization without first vision and second strategy, it's not very efficient. You will go nowhere. If you want to buy a CLM or an AI tool or CLM powered by AI, if you don't have a strategy, it won't be working. Because part of the strategy, especially in terms of technological standpoint, is the adoption by the users. And we all know again that legal people are quite conservative. So if they have to use a new tool, you have to work with a kind of change management. So that needs to be part of the strategy. You cannot just, okay, saying, okay, I'm doing all hands. My 100 lawyers around the world are connected on to Zoom. Okay, here's the new tool. Just use it. Then you will have a 1 hour video explaining you how to use it, and then full stop. Bye bye. It doesn't work like that. You have to process a change management, and that needs to be part of your strategy, your AI strategy.
I feel like we could literally talk for hours about this topic. There's so much to go into, right?
Absolutely. The strategy of wait and see doesn't work. You have to, but you have to do this with a strategy. So that means that people, process, tools, just don't buy an AI tool just to shine, again, shine in dinners. I'm very fan of this expression because I think that's very straight to the point. Just, okay, meeting in an event. Oh, we bought that AI tool. No, we bought that tool in order to fill that gap, in order to work faster, in order to make sure that we are covering all the business aspects and so on. Have a strategy. Have your people on board. Rework your data. Rework your processes. And in order to make sure that your AI subscription is efficient for your people. Because end of the day, the point is to make their lives easier, not to complexify their lives, which is already very complex. Lawyers' life are not an easy one. I'm very fan of this discussion because my oldest daughter is at high school for the moment, but she wants to be a lawyer. And I told her, okay, look, that's a fabulous job. I'm doing that job since 25 years. At the very beginning, I was not really sure that why I'm studying law, but I got my passion after all. That's a fabulous job for sure, but that's a very complex one. And especially when you are climbing the steps and you are having leadership positions, when you are GC or when you are legal director or when you are head of legal, again, whatever the title, our lives are not necessarily easy, very easy every day. And when you are speaking with the people, part of your team, and that you understand that there are already some complexities in their job, and that you will add a tool on top of that, the tool needs to make their life easier. If it's adding any kind of complexity, that's not good. Adoption rate will be close to zero, and you will be spending 100K dollars, euros for nothing because nobody will use the tool. And everyone will be complaining about, okay, we have not been part of the decision. We have not been part of the change management. We have not been part of the AI strategy. So get your people on board, have a strategy, a legal strategy and an AI strategy, work with your people, with your process, and get the right tool for the right need.
I think that's absolutely crucial. And I'm really glad that you emphasized that and went into more detail about, people and technology and process, because that's what we need. That's the future of that's now, and that's going to help us in the future of law for sure.
I think so. And I think that's the way we need to think about that. That's my personal, very strong feeling about that. And I'm really thinking, okay, that's the way we have to do it. PPT and not the other way.
Yeah, absolutely.